This is Krista. Welcome to this week's episode of MadeToBeWhole, while we get to know one of our health coaches, Megan Eicher.
MadeToBeWhole is intended for informational purposes only. It's not intended to replace the advice or care of a licensed healthcare professional. Participating in this podcast does not constitute a provider-patient relationship with Krista Michener, AHP Integrative Health, or any of the guests featured on MadeToBeWhole. Krista Michener, AHP Integrative Health, and any featured guests aren't responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from use of information obtained in this podcast or associated materials. Please consult a healthcare professional for any health-related concerns that you are experiencing.
So welcome back to the podcast. We're going to do a series of recordings where you get to meet our health coaches, because I want you to learn from their journeys and also have a sense, if you're a patient or thinking of becoming a patient, who's available to work with you, who might be a good fit. And as I mentioned before, all of our health coaches are patients or family members of patients. So they're not only as professionals, but also as peers to help people navigate their journey. So Megan has quite a story, and I'm really excited to have her work with you, in addition to being a mom and having navigated this crazy world of Lyme and other infections as a parent. She has professional training in social work. She also was a homeschool mom and has a lot of insight in how to support kids in unique ways that way. So she's got a lot to offer us. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
We're happy to have you. Tell us a little about your family.
I'm married to Chad, and we've been married 28 years. And we have two boys who are twins that we adopted when they were babies, and they are 19 years old.
Awesome. And you're going to be a grandma.
And I'm going to be a grandma. Yeah, September.
Yeah, that's really exciting.
It is, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your family's journey with Lyme disease, when you first figured out what was going on, finding treatment, all of that.
My son woke up, I believe it was 2022, on a Saturday morning, and half of his face was paralyzed. He had Bell's palsy, and that was the very first sign of anything going on with him. We went to the pediatrician, and they really didn't do anything. And so I kind of was doing my own research. I've always been very interested in healing and holistic foods and that kind of stuff anyway. And so I kind of did a deep dive and thought that it could be Lyme, but got a lot of pushback on testing him for that. We finally took a couple months, but got some testing done, and it came back positive. So he was given antibiotics for 3 weeks, and the Bell's palsy went away. And he seemed fine for about 5 months. And then he started rapidly losing weight. He ended up losing 60 pounds in like 6 weeks or something like that. And my other son didn't. And for me as a mom, my boys have always done everything exactly the same. And so I was trying to figure out something's going on. And then I thought, oh, he has Lyme and the other one doesn't. And so without going into so much we had him everywhere. We had him to Cleveland Clinic, a couple different places there, Akron Children's, and they treated him for the thyroid. It turned out it was thyroid, but I felt like it was probably spurred on by the Lyme. And so it took us about a year from the time of diagnosis to the time to find someone who knew about Lyme and how to treat it from a functional perspective. And so that was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and we started having him treated there, and he improved greatly. He was doing a lot better with the different things that she was doing. But then we think got reinfected and had a flare last year, and we're very concerned about him not being able to be seen in person as much, and had, through a whole other story, found Krista, and so had her start treating him. We switched just so he could be seen more in person. And I think Uh, then she did some additional testing, which has been huge to figure out how he can best heal from Lyme and some genetic things that were going on for him. One of the things was that he is missing, I don't know, Krista, you can probably explain this better, like the genetic way to process folate. I don't know how you say it.
Prone to the cerebral folate deficiency where you can't get
Okay.
folate to the brain. And then the intervention for that is leucovorin or
Yeah.
folic acid.
So we started him on that and cannot believe the change in him because he and his twin both have struggled with severe ADHD for their whole lives. And, this actually is changing some of that for him. So it's very, very exciting to see the changes that we're seeing in him. His thyroid is doing better again. He's feeling so much better. So I'm very hopeful and feeling like we're kind of on the mend on a healing journey here for him. So,
And memory was one of the
oh,
symptoms that
terrible.
improved, right?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. His memory, I mean, for a 19-year-old, he had the memory of a 65-year-old. Like, just can't I mean, you tell him something, he forgets like 10 seconds later. And that is greatly improving for him in terms of like a lot of the executive functioning. We're slowly starting to see like, oh, wait, he's actually developing some of those skills now, which is very exciting.
It is, and if you think about if some things just weren't working because you didn't have the right ingredients, because you guys have been doing all the right things, putting the right ingredients, I just think puzzle
Yes.
pieces are going to keep clicking
Yeah, yeah.
together.
And if you can
Yeah.
get down to some of the foundational stuff that we didn't even
Hmm.
know, that's going to help him in healing from all the Lyme and everything as well, too.
Right. And I
Yeah,
think too with that DNA testing, you guys got two for the price of one
we
since the
did.
twins are identical, which was
We
like
did.
a great bargain.
Yes. And so we actually just last week started my other son on the same leucivore. And so and I need to talk to him. I haven't found out if he's being
Find out.
consistent with it. So if we
Right.
can get him to be consistent, then it'll make it easier for him to keep taking it. So
Well, and I think with just the memory going back, just the functional things, one of the things you mentioned was before he couldn't remember to take his medicine, even it was right in front of him.
mhm.
You have a kind of geriatric pillbox with
We
timers and
do.
everything?
So we had to get him a pillbox that was designed for people with dementia. It has lights and sounds and everything on it. That helped a little bit. He's married and is living with his wife now, so that's helping too. But the biggest help has probably been the leucovorin and just getting
Right.
it in, himself being able to remember. So,
Well, and I think it's just helpful to put it in something practical. Like you had gone through all of these steps and you had the lights and the noise, and she would tell him and you'd call him, and it still didn't sometimes happen. And now he's mostly just taking care of it. He couldn't follow through before.
couldn't he couldn't. I was setting alarms at midnight to call him at 5:45 a.m. and I honestly was doing that up until about 3 weeks ago. And then all of a sudden he starts texting me, I took my pills, mom. I took my pills. It's amazing.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think just I don't know, breaking it down, all of the not that you'd trade your kids for anything, but the weight of all of that, that must make your life feel
A lot lighter.
tremendously easier. Yeah, to know
Yes.
he has to take thyroid meds
Yeah.
so he doesn't die,
Yeah.
but if I'm not there calling,
Yes.
things could
Yeah.
get bad.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It is very
Cool.
cool.
And I think, what do you think in retrospect? Because this is one of my big plugs for the genetic test. What do you think would have been different if you would have known this 5 or 10 years ago?
Gee, if I had known this before,
Hmm.
I I feel like I would have been able to go directly to the right source. We spent a whole year trying to
Right,
find the right source of who knows, understands this, and who
right,
can, because it's just not general knowledge with all the medical professionals out there, and so I wish I had known what to look for. I didn't know what to look
right,
for.
right.
I came across the term Lyme-literate, and that was helpful. I was like, oh, okay. And that kind of helped us find who we found. So,
Well, and how I first became acquainted with that test was someone in a forum, another provider saying, "Hey, my tricky patients, this is what helps me." unlock it, because you have these infections, you have 10 different people with 10 different symptoms, and
Yes.
it's just, you can't totally standardize things, but to know, okay, we treated the infection, these things got better, but what did the infection unmask?
Yeah.
I think is what happens. It's just your vulnerabilities are going to get kicked around and show themselves through that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more because he already struggled with ADHD and it got 100 times worse. And I do think it just brings out your weaknesses already,
Right.
you know?
Right. Well,
Yeah,
and then
for
you look
sure.
at how difficult learning was,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's, we're so hard on kids. You know, you
Yes.
need focus, discipline, but
Yeah.
literally, if his brain was starving,
I
there's only so much
know.
he could do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one reason we homeschooled. They struggled
Right.
so much, you know? And so I was like, well, this is a way I can cater it to their needs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But who knows what it would have looked like if we had leucovorin when they were little, you know?
Well, I just think though, obviously, you know, he still would have gotten sick, yada yada, but you could definitely, by spending money on the test, which I know is an expensive test, but I feel like you save time and money. You know,
Yes,
I think that
absolutely.
definitely would have changed the trajectory of some things.
And that is something like I know that the functional medicine, it's not covered by insurance, and so cost can add up. But for me, it was worth the sacrifice of investing in his health and in his future to spend that money. And I know it's hard, you know, for people, but I think that that is really the way to go. It's worth the investment. You have to look at it as
Right.
an investment.
Right. And your
Yeah.
genes don't change.
No, no, they don't change at all, which makes it, I just love how that test enables you to kind of almost cater specifically to the way his body functions and
Right.
getting him on a healing path for his body.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we move to the coaching, which you're going to be
Hmm.
doing at HP,
Yeah,
which we're really, really excited
I
about
am too.
forever. It's just exciting. What have you
Yeah.
been, I guess, from two phases, what have you been the most interested in from the perspective of the coaching training and the things you're learning about the body? And what are you most excited about as far as the type of support you can give people, what you think you can give them that was a missing piece for you?
Yeah, the training has been really interesting to me. Right now we've learned about the gut and I think that's been fascinating because the gut I'm learning is like almost like the second brain. It's so important in the messages that it sends back and forth. And I think if you can get your gut healthy, you can fix a lot of things. And so that's been really, really interesting to me. When my son got diagnosed, I am the kind of person who just dives in. So I read books about Lyme and did all this research and stuff. And I was so, I thought, man, wouldn't it be a dream come true someday for me to be able to help guide other people in this journey that is awful, you know? Wouldn't that be something? So I'm really looking forward to being able to help people with you in terms of getting them on the right path and helping to encourage them if they need to change their food plan or anything like that. Those things can be overwhelming, and I'm really looking forward to coming alongside people and helping them with those kinds of things.
I think a lot of it is just the nuts and bolts when you're doing change, someone to help you through the process of
Yes.
changing what you're
Yeah.
eating or how you shop or how do you integrate all these pills into it, and just the practical sorts of things.
Yeah, that is so overwhelming. And if your brain isn't working right, which a lot of times on Lyme, it affects how you function, it's very overwhelming and difficult to do those things. And so I think to have someone, it would have been very helpful for me as a mom starting out on this journey to have somebody come alongside me and talk about, you know, the different supplements or even how to set up a practical program, you know, to get them in him every week and those kinds of
Right.
things. That would have been really nice. I felt like I was kind of floundering and figuring it out on my own.
Well, and if you're having to learn, you know, not even supplements, but just diet. Say you have a kid
Yes.
who should be on a gluten-free diet, figuring out how to make that work, especially if you have a kid who happens to also be special needs and have texture issues and
Yeah.
preferences. I mean, it's just, there's so many layers of emotion. And I think helping having someone to brainstorm with, but also just to say, hey, you can do this. And I get it. It's hard. Just that
Absolutely.
acknowledgement.
hmm I think that is something I look forward to being able to provide for people too, is just acknowledging how difficult this is and how, implementing these things can be it's not easy, especially if you're trying to implement it with a kid. We had so many battles with him over
Mm-hmm.
different things and taking his pills and stuff. And it, yeah, I look forward to trying to help people walk through some of those things and come up with an easier way to do them.
And I think, too, the idea of having support for patients and parents is important because we've talked about it for patients' information. If you are a parent or a family member, you could use Megan or Molly as your coach for you, and we could have one of our younger people do it for your child. Or if they don't want to participate, they wouldn't have to. We can kind of mix and match to see who needs what,
What?
because we
Yeah.
don't we don't want to. Well, I'll just tell a story. I remember my parents taking me to counseling when I was a teenager, and they basically hand selected someone who is just like them,
Yeah.
which didn't really help me with
Yeah.
wanting to open up and yada
Right.
yada yada. I would have been much happier to have someone who didn't remind me of my parents. And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
your child might rather have someone who's not your age, like
Yes.
just someone who gets their journey. And
And
and we
vice
know it's not
versa.
wise to have kids, it's not fair to have a 20-year-old helping you navigate how to be a parent and how to change food. Yeah, they might have some practical advice, but the
Yeah.
boots on the ground experience matters a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, I think it does. And I think too, it's the same for kids, right? They might open up more to somebody younger as opposed to me, who's
Right.
mom and older. So it's nice that to have a variety, I think, too, to cater that for whatever the patient's need is.
So what sorts of diet and lifestyle changes did your family have to make through all this?
Um, well, the biggest thing for my son was gluten. Um, and he struggles with that. He really does. I myself have been gluten free for about 10 years for my own health stuff that you're starting to help me with. And but he really, really struggled with that. And then at one point we cut out dairy and gluten and, nightshades and some other stuff. And it wasn't an easy time. He saw his friends eating whatever they want and all of those things. And it's tough to kind of walk alongside them during that time and say, I know this is really hard, but it's an investment. It's an
Right.
investment in your future health.
Well, and
So
you had mentioned something you would be willing to do is to even help people go through their refrigerators and their
absolutely.
houses.
Absolutely, because I've done that for us as a family. And like I said, had some of my own health issues that I've been trying to figure out. And so I've gone through our refrigerator and our cupboards and all of our cleaning supplies and those kinds of things too can really have an impact on your health. And, I love doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, I'm willing to help people in whatever way they need supported with that kind of stuff.
And I think just extra eyes on the ground and an extra brain, because we know when you're in the middle of crisis with a kid, you're just exhausted. Physically,
Exhausted.
emotionally, having to make extra decisions seems really hard.
It really does. It really, really does. It can be extremely overwhelming. Plus, you have regular life happening too, right? You've got this
Hmm.
Lyme thing that's very overwhelming, but life doesn't stop. And
No.
so, it becomes overwhelming pretty quickly.
Right. So, when you were going through this process, navigating, figuring out what was going on with your son, getting diagnosis, getting treatment, what are the things that people did or said that were helpful and the things that were not helpful?
Um, let's start with not helpful. How about that?
Okay.
So, we'll end on a positive. Um, I felt dismissed a lot. Very dismissed a lot with his symptoms and things like that. I knew my son. I knew his weight loss was not normal, that this was not healthy and it wasn't normal. And yet I got from different professionals, well, he's not underweight. And in my mind, I'm like, not yet.
Right.
Um, and so those were the things that were not helpful. And there really wasn't always a lot to offer. It was like, nope, his Lyme is gone. See you later. See you next year, kind of thing, you know. The things that were helpful were the people who actually listened and finding out about like, hey, there is a thing called Lyme-literate, you know, that really sent me on the right journey. But I think just being heard in the times that I felt like I was being heard. And when we did find the nurse practitioner in Chattanooga, I felt heard for the first time, that she believed me. She didn't think I was crazy, you know, and that was huge for me as a mom in terms of helping him. Just that,
Sure.
okay, I'm on the right path, and it was validating, you know,
Right.
and that was really huge for me to be validated.
Did you have many challenges with family or friends dealing with all of this?
Yeah.
Not to throw anyone under the
No,
bus,
no, no,
but
no. You know, we still have, it's not that people don't believe that he has Lyme, but just believing that Lyme can cause everything that it does. That seems
right,
to be very difficult for people to believe or understand.
right,
You know, and I think because it's so prevalent, I believe it's so prevalent. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I know who have Lyme, but a lot of people aren't aware of that. And so when you know, start talking about it, they're like, ah, there's no way. It sounds too crazy to be true,
right,
you know. So
right,
but I have found a group of people, right, who do believe me. And
right.
so that's been very helpful, you know. But yeah, I actually do get a lot of pushback.
I think that's interesting what you said is the concept of we do lose people sometimes through our trials, or we should at least be willing to, you know,
Yes. Yes.
if there's a nosy friend or neighbor who just drains you,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
It's
but you've got
okay.
to
Yeah.
find that, but you do have to find a group of people who do believe you. You don't need
You
everyone to
do.
believe you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Even our old NP, she believed me, and that was so wonderful. But now, since I've come and joined AHP, it's just been so refreshing to be around people who understand it and get it and get the journey. Like that's been just great for me.
Well,
So
because you just feel less lonely.
you
You really
do.
do.
It can be
It
a
just
very lonely place to be, very lonely.
I
Because when you're,
realized
yeah, go ahead.
I'm a little spoiled just because I talk to people all the time, every day, who deal with this. I do not feel isolated by my illness. It's not that I enjoy it, you know, and
No.
that I'm happy I'm still on this journey, but I know I'm not alone. And I'm on the other side. I'm almost surprised when there's someone who's healthy.
Doesn't believe, yeah. Yeah. Well, and
But it
that's,
is really a gift to not feel isolated.
it really is. It really is. And my husband and I have both talked about that it's very isolating to be on this path if you don't have anyone in your life who really is on board or believes you. And you kind of learn who you can talk about it with and who you can't. So I haven't had to like end any relationships or
Right.
anything, you know, but I'm just like, oh, okay. I just, you know, kind of avoid that topic.
We'll talk about other things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well, and I think there's a lot of wisdom in that too, because I see a lot of people, patients, family members who they still want that affirmation and validation from everyone.
Yeah. And
And
you're just not going to get it.
no, and that's just a life thing.
Yeah.
That's not a
Mhm.
Lyme thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it happens with infection, but that's just life and being willing to not need everyone to understand. You know, I'll hear, well, they just don't understand. And I think, I know that's hard, but it's okay. Not everybody is going to.
Yeah,
And
and that's
so,
okay. Everybody is where they are. They're in their own
right.
journey, and I don't need to change that for them.
You just pick and choose your audience. I think gathering the right support system is so critical. And it doesn't have to be a huge support system,
No,
it's
it
just
doesn't.
having a couple people who aren't going to judge. Has that kind of naturally evolved from the friends you already have, or is it new people you've met along the way?
That's a great question. I honestly, it's kind of naturally evolved. Um, I'm trying to think. I feel like I have a few people in my life who really, really get it. And that has
Right.
been important. And my sister-in-law, I've shared with you, she has Lyme and it's been awful, but it's been huge to have her in my life and kind of going through this together, even though it's my son, who's been
Right.
diagnosed. That's been a big deal. So that one was very natural, to me. And then Rachel, you're one of your nurses, she didn't know a lot about Lyme. We've been friends for 8 years now, I think,
Okay.
and she was so sweet, but it just didn't like sink in, and
Mm-hmm.
now it is. She gets it and she understands it now. So that's been really great for me as well too, to have some people in my life who really understand it and get it.
Just the extra layer of understanding is nice, not to
Absolutely.
have to
Yeah,
explain things or just to be seen. I get you. I'm with you. I know you
absolutely.
didn't cause this or choose this. So,
Yeah, yeah. And I think sometimes people too are like, like almost like, does she have Munchausen?
yep. No, I have patients who have been
Yeah,
told that their
yeah,
families have. No, it's
yeah,
it's
yeah. And
really
to
really
find
unkind.
it is, and to find someone like our other NP and you who like was like, no, I believe you, was a really big deal to as a mom for me. That was really
Right.
important.
Right.
Yeah.
And then how do you balance, because I think this is a challenge some people have. You do a lot of research and reading and then you go to appointments. How have you managed like relationships with providers? Do you feel like you've figured things out that people haven't been willing to do, or like how do you navigate gathering information and trusting your provider?
It's not easy because
Right.
most providers really don't want you coming to them. But that was my experience anyway,
Right.
is when I would come and say, hey, I've read this and this and that, they weren't super excited about that. They didn't really want to
Right.
hear what I had been learning. And so I got to the point where I just was like, okay, like I didn't try to push anymore. And I just would usually say, okay, I'll think about what you've said and get back to you about that or whatever. But I quit fighting. I fought for quite a while.
It sounds almost kind of like the same process with the friends. You know what I mean? You
Yes.
just say,
Yes.
this person is, it's not worth engaging on this.
Yeah.
And how do you, I don't even know the answer to
Yeah.
this, like helping people realize I don't want them to not see their specialist or this person that could help them. But then at a certain point, if there are people who don't get it, who aren't going to hear them, who aren't really for them, letting it go.
Letting it
It,
go. And yes. And
yeah.
that's can be a scary thing too. Because you're like sitting in front of a professional and you
Mm-hmm.
think I'm supposed to be like trusting what they say. It takes courage to
Mm-hmm.
say, okay, it's okay. This professional is not in alignment with where I am, and that's okay. I can let that go and move on to something else.
I'm
But
here
it's
gathering information
yeah,
and then I can act.
I can
Well, but
act how I choose.
it's interesting where the problem partly comes from though is them not trusting you as a parent. And that
Yes.
has been a huge disappointment. I remember even in
Yes.
my undergraduate training, our pediatric nursing professor talked about you'd have to listen to parents. Parents know best. If parents say there's something wrong, you've got to trust the instinct. I mean, this was drilled into my head. Patient history is the most important thing. And then you get out there and that is completely disregarded.
It's the
Parents,
opposite.
I
I mean,
know it's awful.
it is, and I'm glad you got that, but it is I had the opposite
Mm-hmm.
experience. I was told so many times. I felt very dismissed. And I'm
Right,
glad I didn't stop fighting because he was sick. He had Lyme and
right,
but I think the parents do know their kids the best, and most parents want the best for their kids and aren't going to be
right,
making something up for
right.
attention.
Well, and I always, when my patients get that, I look at the symptoms that they have and I think, if you wanted on tension, why on earth would you pick this story? I
Yeah.
mean, it's crazy. It's
Right.
absolutely crazy. And
Yeah.
a teenage boy losing 60 pounds, that's insane.
It's
That is
insanity.
insane.
And I
Yeah.
literally was told by our professional, well, he's at a healthy weight. Why? Like, she was going to just send us home. She did
Oh
just
my
send us home.
gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the same thing happen to me. with a professional. I had been losing weight and didn't know why. And she was like, well, you're not underweight. So and I knew something wasn't right, and that was the same for my son too. And having your instincts and your gut dismissed over and over again is discouraging.
And then how did you navigate once you found the NP in Tennessee? Was it hard to kind of let go and let her direct care?
Yes. So that's a great question, because I felt like I read her book and I was in alignment with her and her approach. But I had been fighting professionals so much, and I had to make the choice to say, okay, I chose her and I trust her. And so I'm just going to trust her. I don't, and it's a hard transition to make. It's a really hard transition to make, or it was for me.
Well, and I think it's an interesting balance, because even as a provider, when I ask people to trust me, I don't want them to start doubting their gut or stop learning or not feel like they can't ask questions. But there does have to be a certain point at which I mean, you're paying for our advice. Do you
Yes.
I mean, you don't have to. You can go somewhere else if you hate everything I say.
Well, no, and I agree with that. Like it's tough for people, especially, and I think too, if you have Lyme, people can be paranoid or question things, and so
they don't remember everything.
They don't remember everything exactly, and so I think that is a tough thing. But for me and my husband, we said, okay, we found someone we think we're in alignment with. We're going to release it and trust and let go, and
it's not blind trust, because you did your research, you got
Right.
to that point, but it's one of those.
Yeah.
I just realized, at a certain point, if there's not a certain level of trust, this relationship is not going to be beneficial to you. And
Exactly.
I don't want people to not feel comfortable with the care they're getting. But if you're comfortable with it, then you've got to be willing to trust the process that we've developed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree 100%.
Well, and also knowing too, sometimes people don't understand there's a lot of, I mean, you're just taking on a lot of risk as a provider in a clinic by doing something that's a little different, right? So we also have to make sure we're doing things in a way that are completely compliant and don't risk our practice, because we want to still be around to help people. And so a lot of the policies and rules are made based on our experience and what gets people better, but also just knowing the process and the system that we're trying to work in. There is a method to it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got to follow that procedure so that you can continue helping the most people.
Well, and one of the things we're hoping to, with the coaching that you and others are going to be providing, sometimes the follow through is hard because of the cognitive implications of the disease, or because people are overwhelmed. And so the coaches will be able to provide the level of support that you want. If you want to get the package that allows for like a weekly check-in, you can have a weekly check-in.
Yep.
You can use your time with them to have them come to your appointment. Like, you guys are there to help people be successful. So if they leave and they're overwhelmed, even though they have the treatment plan in front of them, you can help get the most of it and help remind them like what this is leading toward.
Yes, absolutely. And that's kind of what I'm looking forward to, is walking alongside people, because it is very difficult when you're not feeling well. And I'm excited to see people get better and like walk with them on that journey, because they will. I have all the confidence in the world, My son, I'm seeing it in my own son, so
that's awesome. No, I was going to say that was one of the hardest things about the first year or so of doing this, because it takes time for people to get better. You didn't have those visits. You only had sick people. Yeah. And it's now nice. We've been doing it long enough. We have people in all different stages of healing, but there always are people coming whose lives have changed.
That is the thing about approaching it this way, which I really believe is the only approach with Lyme, if we're discussing Lyme, but is that it takes time. It is not a quick and easy fix, It's time consuming and it's not fast, but it's so worth it. It's worth the effort and the time put into it.
Absolutely. And really, it's all of the things that we're requiring with foundations and the root cause stuff that we're tying to Lyme treatment are really the things that make you again, vulnerable to other disease. That's why there's going to be a lot of overlap with the cancer support, or if somebody wants prevention, because Lyme, like we said, exposes your vulnerabilities. If you can fix your vulnerabilities, fix your nutrients, address the DNA, get rid of toxins, then the next hit that comes around, because if you live long enough, you're going to have multiple things that threaten your health and well-being, and you want to be prepared and be able to handle it.
Yeah, it's like it prepares your body, it fills in all those holes so that your body can actually fight the way it's supposed to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's just exciting. People ask me frequently, will I ever get better? Can I be done? I say, yes, you will get better, but you can't take your health for granted. Yes. You don't go through all of this and then just go back to not paying attention to what you eat, not treating deficiencies. You're going to be engaged, but you're actually, I know Lyme people feel like the unhealthiest people in the world, but on the other side of it, you can be some of the healthiest people of the world because of the changes that you make.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So what would be any words of advice you would have to someone who's early on in this journey with them or their family?
I would say get the right people around you. That's the very first thing. Find the somebody who knows Lyme, find the right provider who actually is Lyme literate, get people around you who understand it and will listen. I think I think that's the most important thing.
And I think one of the cool things about coaching, in one of the reasons I was motivated to bring it on, is because unfortunately, some people don't have anyone in their immediate circle who's supportive and listen. And so the coach can fill that role if you haven't found those people yet. And of course, we hope that people come around and you're able to find that, but you have someone who can step in and be that listening ear and support for you while you get well enough to build a stronger support system around you.
Absolutely. And maybe, the coaches could maybe even make suggestions, or something like that.
Well, and
who could be support.
Right. Help you identify that, because if you want to tell people a little bit about your professional background too, and how the things that you've learned there could help them with building their own little tribe.
Yeah. So I was an in-home family therapist for about 5 years. And then I was also a case manager for at-risk youth. And both of those were in Pittsburgh. And that was something I'm excited about is finding resources for people. That was a big part of what I did in the case management job, was connecting people with the right resources. And that's not always an easy thing to find. And then the family counseling side of it, I'm excited to kind of use some of that too. I feel like I already do some in my life. And I think the support of other people, and even like a counseling type person, can be very helpful. And I'm not a counselor now, and I'm not saying I will be, but I just think that those two things could potentially be helpful for people struggling.
Sure. Helping them build their support system.
Yeah.
Because even though we can fill that role in some senses, the goal is when you're done, not only do you feel better physically, but things are better emotionally, socially too. You can have help figuring out where to even go to meet the types of people that would be good friends, and when to step away from relationships or just limit sharing. Like you said, helping you understand you don't need everyone's affirmation and approval. It's okay.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, that is something that I've had to really work on too, is that, I don't need everybody's approval about how we're approaching this,
Exactly.
And that's okay. That doesn't mean it's a bad friendship or relationship or anything, but you also just have to learn how to figure out who you can say what to, and who's going to be supportive of your journey and not.
Right. Just to be careful where you spend your emotional resources.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you, Megan, for coming on. We're very excited to have her on the podcast, and even more excited to have her at AHP.
So excited to be here.
It's going to be awesome. And we are going to we'll have these recordings available, but also we were going to get a newsletter together that has pictures and intros to all of our coaches so you know who's available, what their skills are, and who might be a good fit to help you on your healing journey. So thanks for tuning in, and remember to have hope because you were made to be whole.
Have a podcast question or suggestion? Text or call us on the podcast info line at 330-439-0686. Thank you for spending time with me today. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to be notified when new episodes release. And remember, you were made to be whole.